Welcome to the Global Warwatch Network. We're tracking a really tense situation building in the Caribbean, one that has a lot of people on edge. Hey, if you want to stay ahead of stories just like this, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button right now.
All right, so what's all the fuss about? It all starts with one seemingly small piece of intel. We're hearing reports that U.S. forces in the Caribbean, specifically those operating near Venezuela, are having their holiday leave restricted.
Now you might be thinking, so what? It's just an administrative thing. But in military circles, no way. This is a huge red flag. It's a signal that something is up, and it's raising some very, very serious questions about what the U.S. might be planning to do, and soon.
Okay, so let's get into it. What does locking down holiday leave actually mean when we're talking about the military? This is way more than just an inconvenience for the troops.
You see, analysts call this a rare public flag. It's not some secret memo. It's a visible signal to the world that a military force is shifting gears, going from just being present to being ready for action. It's one of the strongest indicators we can get that they're gearing up for a major escalation. We're talking potential strikes, major operations, the whole deal.
And get this, we're not talking about something that might happen months down the line. The timing here is key. This leave restriction lines up with chatter from multiple sources suggesting an operation could be imminent, as in within the next 10 to 12 days. That, right there, puts a ticking clock on this whole situation.
To really understand how serious this is, look at the calendar. We're talking about restrictions covering Thanksgiving and Christmas. You just don't cancel leave for those holidays unless you absolutely have to. It tells you that whatever the timeline is, it's firm and it is not up for negotiation. Now, to be fair, we have to look at the official word from U.S. Southern Command. They've come out and said, essentially, that nothing's changed, that their people can always take leave. So you've got this official statement on one hand, and on the other you have all these signals on the ground that analysts say point in the exact opposite direction.
But this whole leave issue isn't happening in a vacuum. It's just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. At the exact same time, there's been a massive military buildup in the area.
Just let that sink in for a second. Analysts are calling this the biggest U.S. military presence in the Caribbean since the Cold War. This isn't just a routine patrol. We are talking about a historic deployment, the kind you only see when things are incredibly tense. And the firepower they've brought to the party is just staggering. You've got a full carrier strike group with the USS Gerald R. Ford at its center. You've got B-52s, those long-range bombers, FA-18 Super Hornets, a huge fleet of surface ships, and all the refueling tankers needed to keep them in the air. They're not just sitting there either. They've been running show-of-force missions, like flying a B-52 right up along the Venezuelan coast. It's a clear message.
So what's the game plan with a force like this? Well, military analysts who look at this stuff say the mix of assets is very telling. It's not the right kind of force for a full-scale ground invasion, but it is the perfect kind of force for launching precision strikes, setting up a blockade at sea, and just generally applying a whole lot of military pressure. Okay, so you've got the troops and the hardware, but how do you legally justify using them against another country? Well, that's where things get really complex, and it looks like a very specific legal path is being paved.
The whole strategy seems to hinge on a group called the Cartel de los Soles. The U.S. claims this is a narco-terrorist group that's basically woven into the fabric of the Venezuelan government, with top officials involved. And here's the key part. The U.S. has officially labeled them a Foreign Terrorist Organization, or FTO.
So why is that FTO label such a big deal? Well, here's the argument critics are making. If you can designate this cartel as a terrorist group, and then you link that group to the Venezuelan state, you can then frame any military strike as part of the war on terrorism. And if you do that, you could potentially argue you don't need to go to Congress for approval to go to war. It's seen by some as a potential legal workaround.
But hold on, it's not quite that simple. A lot of legal experts are pushing back on this, saying, not so fast. They argue that just because you label a group an FTO, it doesn't give you a blank check to conduct major military operations inside another country, especially when that country's government is involved. It is a very, very shaky legal and constitutional path to go down.
And you know, this isn't just theoretical wargaming. All this positioning and legal maneuvering is already having real-world effects, creating ripples across the entire region and even further.
So, of course, the Venezuelan government is condemning all of this. They're calling it a setup for an illegal intervention aimed at regime change. But it's not just them. Other countries in Latin America and Europe are getting really nervous, worried this could destabilize the entire region. And it's even hitting regular people.
Airlines have started canceling flights, and the FAA is warning pilots that all the military activity could mess with their GPS.
All right, let's step back and put all the pieces together. When you lay out all the evidence we've just talked about, a pretty clear and alarming picture starts to form.
So what do we got? You've got the restricted leave, that rare public signal of readiness. You've got the massive military buildup, the biggest since the Cold War. You've got the legal groundwork being laid with that FTO designation, and you have these constant, in-your-face show-of-force missions. When you add it all up, it really looks like a shift away from just applying pressure to being fully ready for actual kinetic action.
One source we saw summed it all up with this one chilling line. It perfectly captures that feeling of inevitability, that the clock is ticking for everyone involved, from Washington to Caracas. The pieces are all in motion.
And that really is the final burning question, isn't it? All the signs suggest the preparations are done. The military is in place. The legal justification, controversial as it is, has been laid out. The signals have been sent. So what happens when that countdown finally hits zero?
And that's our breakdown for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you found this valuable, please help us out by hitting that like button, sharing it with someone who needs to see it, and of course, make sure you are subscribed to the Global Warwatch Network so you don't miss our next update.
But now we want to hear from you. What's your take on this? Drop your thoughts and your own analysis in the comments section. To keep the conversation going, come join our community over on social media. All the links for that are waiting for you in the description. Thanks again for watching.